people that are doing the films have not really been forthcoming with information and what they're gonna do. And they need about 2 to 3 months for that type of thing for us to do our marketing and all that. And so it's, mid-January, and we still don't have information. We're gonna do it February 2nd. So
Yeah.
it is what it is, and decisions had to be made, not something we wanted to make, but we had to do it, so we did it. In a minute, I'll let John talk, but we got an event coming up next Monday, fly tying at Sawmill Brewery. Yep. So
Where's that?
in Merrill. John will explain more about that, and then Pat Elsman's gonna be working with Bull Falls Harley on our summer ride program we're gonna do with them. I'm gonna get the details with that so we can let people know, but Pat and I, about a month ago, set the route for it. Goes up through Hatley, north towards along the Plover River, and then goes north towards Parrish, Wisconsin, and all the way to Fisher's Bar, and then back down Highway 17 for the rest of it. So
This section.
Yeah.
That's Pyramid Lake.
what?
Is that Fisher's Bar near a lake up there?
It's on
Not
the,
really.
it's on the corner of 17 and Q and E.
Yeah.
It's got the state record brook trout hanging on the wall there.
Yeah?
A replica.
A replica.
Oh.
Yeah. So, anyway, we will be doing another spring tree planting this coming year with that, but we'll let you know about the dates with that and stuff. The state TU, along with the pushing from national, has also started a program of prioritizing waters in the state. John and I are trying to get more involved with that and find out exactly what they intend to do and see what parts we can be out of it. So, but I think it's kind of a push to probably make sense to focus money and efforts at places that need work versus places that, want work. Those are always two different things, needs and wants. So we're trying to find out more and get involved with that. With that said, then, John, why don't you explain about the fly tying or tie flying or whatever we're doing?
All right. We've had requests from members, the chapter, they'd like to do some fly tying. And we've also had requests from people in the northern part. We cover 4 counties, and we probably cover as large a geographical area as any chapter in the state, with all 4 of our counties. So we wanted to spread out a little more, and so we've, in part, getting ready for the film tour, I struck up a relationship with Sawmill Brewery. It was a hard venture for me to do. No, we did, and in doing so, Zach is a trout fisherman, one of the co-owners of the place, and is really excited about us getting involved with his brewery up there. And they have a very nice, the whole idea of fishing and beer tends to go together. So, trying to look at some of those things, we asked him about, how about a hackle and hops kind of a venture, where you get together and you tie flies. This is kind of our equivalent of the quilting bee. You get together, you drink beer, you eat pizza. They have Stony Acre Farms pizza, the wood-fired pizza place. They sell those there as well. And they have it's the old Department of Natural Resources building in Merrill. And they've gutted the whole inside, redone it. It's really nice thing.
Thank you very much.
Folks here, they serve, you guys serve Sawmill when it comes in, beer, it's good beer. But they want, one of the parts in it is a loft in the top, really nice loft, probably, at least half again as big as all of this area. And each with, there's tables here, there's light, plug-ins at each one of the tables for lighting. So we're gonna try it on Monday night starting at 6 o'clock. We're gonna get together and anybody wants to tie, come on up. We're gonna be, we'll be tying, they close up at 9 o'clock on Monday nights, but that's our open night for us. And we're gonna at least try and see if it catches. So, if you don't know where it is kind of on the north side of Merrill. If you go to the email web thing that we sent out, you can just click on it. It gives you the Google Maps for Sawmill. Very nice place, great guy.
What time?
6 o'clock. 6 o'clock.
So what kind of flies are you gonna tie? Anything?
Whatever you bring and do.
Yeah. I'm sure some people are gonna tie, smallmouth flies, musky flies, trout flies, We're gonna put, like we said, we're gonna get a whole new connotation to bar flies, we're gonna.
Bar flies.
One of the things I want to add with that is the state council did cancel their banquet this year, but I still was sent out and they're gonna have a virtual kind of sell things on there, to raise funds. And part of it is each chapter was given a fly box. I should have brought that with me, but I didn't. But to fill up the flies, I've got about maybe a sixth of it or a tenth of it filled up. And one of the Steves, actually Jim Steve, gained some flies tonight to put in. So, so anyway, we're hoping to fill that up next Monday with that if we can. We've got some at home yet I put in it, but and like I don't normally tie, and I have a cheap source for flies on the internet, so I bought stuff and I put it in. I'm not afraid to admit it because it would take me months to tie that.
God, the internet gets me again.
I can't buy the material for what I'm buying the flies.
Yeah.
I spend money.
What website is that?
Yeah.
Called Big White Fly.
Big one.
Yeah. But buy from Craig. I mean, he's local. They don't have like anything you would get here that's local. They're not going to get.
Yeah.
They'll have occasional things. So that's, one of the things that's different. Yeah.
I must do boxing in the other room or something.
So anyway, so with that being said, for those of you who don't know Craig Cook, we met this fine young guy, 3-4 years ago? He started up a fly shop in Stevens Point, and he's been doing a great job with it. He's got great prices, and his shop, he just moved into a bigger shop this last year, and right off the square and on Main Street in Stevens Point. I recommend you would go down there and take a look. You only spend a few $100 like I do each time I go down there.
Keeps shoes at my kids. I appreciate it.
Yes, I know. So anyway, but well done.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
He does, got a number of different rod makers that he works with, and he does sim stuff in Patagonia, and he does some stuff that's beyond flight. You do some other things. So.
Yep.
But he's thriving because he's in the right community down there for something like this, and because there are people like us that like to spend money in those places. So. But with that being said, Craig, we're going to let you take over.
Sounds good.
Do you want questions during the talk?
Yeah,
or?
for sure.
Okay.
Yep. Thanks. Yeah, so I've only got 12 slides, so I pretty much this is like an open conversation, just back and forth. So if you have any questions when I'm talking, please by all means don't hold them to the end. Let's just have a conversation.
What do you got that's free?
I got a $300 backpack for you. That's the first question. I love it. But so basically, I was asked by Kirk to kind of just talk about like, hey, what's the state of fly fishing right now? When I mean state is like, what's going on? How did 21 go for fly fishing? How are we kind of sitting right now? And then I kind of go in a little bit about gear. So I actually brought some gear pieces here that I can pass around. Everybody can kind of take a look at. I didn't bring a lot, obviously, but some of the key pieces that I brought today are like the hot items that like in 2021, this is what anglers were coming into the store and buying. I just figured I'd share that with you. And then I kind of wrap up the presentation with some photos and kind of like where are we at, our business? Where is the fly shop at right now? A couple of photos of the new shop, some of the brands that we have, and kind of like what is 2022 looking for us. So I'll just kind of dive into it. And again, please, if you have any questions, feel free. I guess what I would say real quick before I go into the next slide is like, so it was 2 years ago in January of 2020 that I was here doing a presentation. And I look back at some of those slides when we were a small little fly shop, and we've grown quite a bit in 2 years, but obviously we were under better circumstances 2 years ago too. So I do appreciate the opportunity to get asked to come back and present and to get to hang out with like-minded individuals. So hopefully you can see that. So I try to make it relatively big because I figured we'd have maybe some older eyes. I'm getting old myself. So 2021 fishing licenses. Okay, now this doesn't break it out for fly, but this is fishing licenses nationwide. And I couldn't find anything on fly fishing specific, but I figured this would give us a relatively good idea of like what's the state of like the outdoors and what's going on with fishing in general. And I would say that fly fishing is a really good portion of that, and obviously some of the western states. But Wisconsin ranks about 6. I believe we're 6 on the list here for as far as fishing licenses sold. I think that's pretty darn good. Obviously, being a Midwestern state, being that we're Wisconsin with all the awesome fisheries that we have, you would hope that we would rank high. But I did find it interesting that Texas was number 1. But then if you look at the size of that state and all the different water features, believe it or not, that Texas has, that does kind of make some sense as well. The really cool thing to me, and obviously this is going to go off of population per state too, right? Those numbers are going to be skewed. People live in those different states. But I think that we're sitting in a good position. We've had immense growth because of the pandemic. And obviously that's probably that'd be a pretty common sense thing to think about, right? Things go down with the shutdown. The best way they tell you that you can recreate is to get outside because that's where you're going to get away from this thing. Obviously, we've learned a little bit differently from early 2020, but we had a lot of people that were getting back to the roots, right? People that have fished or fly fished or did hunting stuff, all the sporting events that they were taking kids on the weekends, that all came to a screeching halt. So families it was actually a good thing. Families were getting back together. They were doing things together. They're recreating outdoors. Therefore, fishing is going up. I talked to numerous anglers that come into the shop and, avid anglers like yourself that are out there beating these streams, and they're seeing a lot more people out there fishing. That has gone down a little bit in 21 compared to 2020. The numbers are a little bit down as far as we kind of start to get back to some normalcy. We're finding out that obviously people are getting back to their busy lives. The anglers are starting to come down a little bit. But the interesting thing that I saw in 2020, believe it or not, in 21, in 2020, we had a ton of people that were coming into the fly shop buying stuff to go out west to go fly fishing. Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, South Dakota, really good fly fishing in South Dakota, if you didn't know that. We still had that influx, but what we really saw is we had a lot of people from Montana and Idaho and Colorado that were in Wisconsin fly fishing this year. And their big lure to come to Wisconsin was they wanted to do smallmouth bass. That was their big lure to come to Wisconsin, because you're not doing some of that same fishing out west. That's scary when you hear yourself like that. So,
What do they fish for?
smallmouth. They came here to smallmouth fish on the lakes, the Wisconsin River. So we had a lot of people coming from out west, which was kind of ironic, right? Because we're always sending people out there. They're getting out of Dodge to come fish because of the season out there, that they have the influx of people that are going out there for the Midwest and the East that are going out west. Switching. Yeah, you would never think that, but it was really a complete switch this year. So in 2020, influx of folks from the Midwest going out west. This year, big influx of people from the West coming to the Midwest. So I thought that was kind of cool. Right. All right. So we talked about fly fishing statistics. So I pulled up some fly fishing statistics that I'm going to read off. It'll kind of give you the reference of where I pulled these from Field and Stream. But there are about 3.8 million anglers in the United States who report that they go fly fishing on a regular basis. 70% of those participate in fly fishing activities are men. I find that interesting because 4 years, 86% men. So if you notice, women are starting to get more involved in the sport, which I think is a great thing. It's a great thing well, I see it as a great thing, obviously, as a retailer of fly fishing products, because obviously we're seeing that women are now getting into the sport, and we are seeing that. My ordering for women's waders and boots has gone up drastically from 2020 to 21. Women are more apt to buy backpacks instead of a sling pack for comfortability because they want them on their shoulders. They don't want a pack going across their chest. Or in hip packs. That's another big one that women are using for angling. The other big thing too, and I don't have this up there, but just in 2020, we had big sales in 5-weight, 9-foot rods. In 2021, we had a huge uptick in 3-weight and 4-weight rods, 8.6 in length, 8 foot in length. People were going with much lighter weight and shorter rods in 2021. Obviously, if you fish in the driftless area, I know you have because you got a driftless angler shirt on. Most of you probably have fished in the driftless area, I would assume. It's just obviously a lot more maneuverable rod to use down there, a little more lightweight, a lot more fun for catching. The other big uptick that we've seen, panfish fishing with fly rod. People are really getting into this thing where they're going out pan fishing on lakes for panfish, and that's where these lighter rods are coming into play as well. But just interesting things that I'm throwing out there. Number 2, 64% of fly fishing activities occur in freshwater locations. The most common places to go fly fishing, this is nationwide, is the Rocky Mountains, where 31.5% of the industry is located. So like, I went out there, I was invited to go out to, Umpqua had their 50th anniversary celebration. I was invited to go out there. So you've got Umpqua out there. Rep Your Water. I mean, like a lot of your major fly fishing companies are located out of Colorado. So that part makes a lot of sense of like the biggest part of the industry is out of the Colorado Rocky Mountain area. And when we were out there, we had conversations with the CEO, and he wanted to know, like, from a fly shop's perspective, what are you seeing? It was a great conversation we had with the CEO of Umpqua, because he was really interested in, again, what are the dealers seeing out there? And then our conversation back to the CEO of Umpqua was like, how do you see things from a higher level as far as the fly fishing industry? What are you seeing? And he said that right now, fly fishing industry is still ascending, where the outdoor industry is starting to peak a little bit. More people are getting into the sport. More people are buying gear. So right now, the sport, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, depending on how much space and how much privacy you like in your streams. But fly fishing right now, it's a much smaller piece of the outdoor industry, but we're currently ascending right now in that industry. So I thought that was pretty interesting as well. Obviously, that was news for me as a retailer. Number 3, physical retail locations are responsible for the majority of sales generated by the fly fishing industry. In 2012, 86% of all sales occurred in the shop. 9% were e-commerce sales. Kirk, you're getting me on the e-commerce stuff. Just kidding. The remainder of the industry revenues are generated by mail order catalogs. So I find this very interesting. So mail order catalogs, right? Do you remember back? I'm sure you probably do. Back in the day, LL Bean. Herders, which now is Dick's, believe that or not. If you didn't know that, it's Dick's. Orvis. Did anybody know that Abercrombie & Finch used to be a huge outdoor and fly fishing company? Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. But mail order used to be the way things used to be done back in the day. That's kind of going away a little bit with internet, the computers, and email. But this is a little skewed because I guarantee you that e-commerce is up probably higher than 9% if I had to guess. But fly shops by far are still where most anglers that are into fly fishing are finding their way to and are getting most of their gear. Right now, we currently have 8 fly shops through the state of Wisconsin. They're actually we're adding another one. It's going to be getting added down in Madison. It's called Muskie Fool. I don't know if you heard of that company or not. Yeah, so they're.
I was going to say that half the reason why fly shop business is like it is because it's regional.
Mm-hmm.
The people there are knowledgeable of what it is that the fish are gonna be striking on in that area.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And every time, it's a great point. Every time that I have people that will come in my shop that are going on a trip out west. Yeah, well, pink squirrels. But I always say to them, I'll say to them, I'll sell you flies. I will sell you flies. But my suggestion is go out to that fly shop that's in that area that you're going to be fishing in and ask those experts out there what flies are working in their area. Most fly shops are not going to hold on to secrets as far as flies, what flies to use. They're not going to hotspot telling you exactly where to go. They may with a $20 bill. I'll do it for free. But we don't sell flies. We don't sell flies for out west trips. It just doesn't make any sense to the angler, and that's just not how you do business, right? So you're 100% right. The musky fool shop, I don't know them personally. From my understanding, they're going to specifically be going towards musky stuff. That's their big thing right now is they sell all the musky stuff. But I'm sure if they're going to be a full service fly shop, they'll probably have stuff for trout. And quite honestly, from my perspective as a retailer in central Wisconsin, Madison could use a fly shop. I mean, with the amount of people that we have in that area. You used to have the Orvis store. That's no longer. The Orvis store down in Madison is gone, if you didn't know that. They closed about 7 to 8 months ago. So I think Madison, it was a shock to me that somebody hasn't opened a fly shop sooner in Madison. So anyway, so we'll have 9 fly shops throughout the state. Number 4, flies are the most popular item purchased by anglers with the industry, accounting for 18.6% of all revenues generated. This is followed by rods at 8.3 and reels at 6.4, and then leaders are 5.6. If fly tying materials are removed from the fly revenues, it would represent 7.8 of the revenue generated by the industry. What I would say that I'm seeing from central Wisconsin standpoint is that fly tying is way more than that. We have a lot of folks that area. We have really upped our fly tying materials in our shop because of that fact. And what I would also say to you is that take the e-commerce or the online purchases of fly tying. The majority of people that are really into fly tying would much prefer to go and hand pick out the material they're going to use, opposed to going online, purchasing it, and hope to God that they have something in here that they can work with. That's to their standard. So that's a good thing from a retailer standpoint, is that most people want to come see us to get fly tying material opposed to buying it online. So for us, at least, the fly tying is a big, especially this time of year, fly tying is a big part of our business. Fly purchases, absolutely. Flies in general was the number 2 most selling product in our store last year in 2021. We sold a crap ton of flies. And we've actually figured out a way to reprice our flies so it's much more convenient and a lot more easy to understand as the customer coming in, where instead of like, well, that fly's $250, well, that fly's $287, well, that's $1.19. We just did a standardized pricing where it's like trout flies are $2.95, bass flies are $5 something, and then if you start going bigger, it's like $7. It's just way easier for the angler to go in there, grab the flies they need, and get the heck back onto the river or to the stream. Any questions on any of this, or did I dive into it? Am I taking too long?
No.
Okay, I don't want to bore you, or I don't want to be rambling too long. All right, number 5, about 44%. I thought this was really interesting. 44% of youth that are interested in fishing are girls and children, are more likely than adolescents to be interested in fly fishing activities. So that's where all of us here are going to make our money, is with our youth, right? And we're seeing that. We have one thing I would say, and I can't speak on the other fly shops' behalf, we have a lot of people that come into our shop. Now, you're probably going to say, well, yeah, duh, it makes sense, you're a fly shop, but that are interested in getting into the sport. And we're talking young people that are interested in the sport. We sell probably to every fly rod that we sell, we probably sell 9 out of 10 fly rods we sell are kits, are the kits. We sell more of those because we have new anglers that want to come in there and learn about it. And it's the most economical way of getting into fly fishing. If you can go in there and buy an Orvis that has everything ready to go out the box, and you can go put a fly on there and fish for $160, it's going to be way more economical than me pulling out a rod, reel, line, tippet, leader, the whole 9 yards for like $300, right? And I always tell customers, and hopefully I'm not rambling too much on me per se or the business, but I grew up blue collar. I never had a ton of money. My family never had a ton of money. So when I have people come in the store, I'm not going to walk you over to a Helios 3 Orvis for $900 and tell you this is a rod you have to have, right? I'm going to basically be like, let's start small, and you can always work your way up. Work your way up. But I always take, especially the younger anglers, over to the kits and say, hey, this is where I would personally start. And it just seems to work. And we've had it. 2-3 years ago, we now have anglers that are repeat customers who have upgraded their gear. And they still have that rod where they can take somebody out there, or if they unfortunately break a rod, they have a backup, right? So, but this is where I think we make the money. If we really want to get people into the sport, or if we want to have them give them the etiquette of fly fishing, that's where the etiquette part starts too, is with the younger anglers. Guided trips represent 13% of the gross sales that fly fishing industry is able to achieve each year. You know, pretty good. That's a pretty good percentage in my opinion as well. I would tell you that I feel like we're seeing a huge uptick in people that want to be fly fishing guides. We're seeing across the board, we're seeing a lot of people that want to be entrepreneurs. A lot of people are done working. They want to go out on their own. I get hit up. I can't tell you how many times I get hit up personally, and people ask me, how'd you start your business? You know, can you give me pointers how you did this? I will within. But I see the same thing with fly fishing guides. People coming in the shop, I've been fly fishing since I was a kid. You know, what does it take for me to be a fly fishing guide? So we're definitely seeing an uptick in this. We definitely have more fly fishing guides and fly shops throughout the state. I can tell you that right now.
Hey, Craig?
Yep.
The one thing I've always read about, a lot of guide shops, especially out west, unless somebody's gone to an Orvis school or something like that, they won't take them on as a guide. Do you kind of take the same approach if somebody approaches you, or how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, you know, like, I'm one of these people that's going to sit down and I'm going to ask a lot of different questions. You know, like, to me, the biggest part of it is, like, obviously, what's your experience fly fishing? But more than anything, like, what's your character, right? Like, how are you, like, personable wise? Because more than half of that job, in my opinion, is how well are you teaching the client? And it's not necessarily like, I think there's this big theory, or this big thing, and I'm not a guide, so I don't want to speak in behalf. And if we have somebody that's online that's a guide, they could probably speak better to this than me. But it's not about, like, this whole idea, like, becoming a guide is like, I got to get people on fish. Well, of course we want to have, if you're going to pay that kind of money, we want you to go out there and have a great experience and get on fish, right? But we run into, at least my experience, we run into more people are, we always screen, and I'm kind of answering the question, but we'll have clients that will call, and the first question is, how much experience do you have, right? And we've had it in the past where people are like, oh, I fish in the Bahamas, I've gone out to Montana, and we've taken those clients out, and they have a real hard time casting their rod, right? So my point behind that is that we have to have somebody that has great patience, that's got really good personal skills, but then on top of that, the experience of, like, okay, are you going to be able to tie a surgeon's knot? Are you going to be able to are you going to be able to do some of these basic things that we all know as anglers that have to be done when you get on the stream? One of the misconceptions with a guide is that the guide does not fish. We have people that will call and say, oh, so is, you know, they'll say to the guide, well, where's your rod? And the guy will say, well, that's my job is to have a wonderful experience for you and to get you hopefully on fish and to teach you the sport of fly fishing. I'm not going to fish with you. The other thing that our guides do, and I would think the majority of the other guides do at other shops, is that we provide all the flies for the clients. We tie all the flies on for them. It's about getting out there, getting that line, the productivity of getting that out there. So I ask a lot of those different questions, and if I get recommendations from other people that may know that person, we're doing the background. We're doing the investigation. The Orvis school, what I would say about that, we are an Orvis dealer, and we have talked, the guides and I have talked about getting them Orvis certified, or I don't think it's certified is the right word, Orvis endorsed. Yep. But it's kind of getting jaded right now, because what happens sometimes is, like, guys will apply to Orvis, become a certified guide or endorsed, and they don't have to go to their school. And now what happens is that shop now puts a big banner at the top of their website, Orvis endorsed guides, but they never really went to that Orvis school. So it's kind of skewed a little bit. You know, if there was another shop owner standing next to me, he may argue that point, but I'm just kind of seeing it because we do, trust me, I do my due diligence to figure out when we do pricing on guided trips and everything, you know, like, what's the qualification that a client wants to see. So I don't know if that, I kind of talked a lot, but
my experience with guides is no client should ever be afraid to ask them a tough question. And if they get an attitude about it, that's right away tell you, I don't want them for a guide.
big time.
And yet I've only had one guide that I can say in my lifetime that was not a good person.
Yeah.
And we left, since we drove with him, we followed along with him. We got up, left the stream, went back to the shop, and told him that we wanted our money back and that he could be on his own. Mm-hmm. And we were told by the shop that Well, that's his last straw, because that was strike three.
Yeah, see, I
It
wouldn't,
was just his whole attitude about us was, my brother who had fished in a long time.
Yep.
He was basically for making a few, and it was like 3 simple mistakes that he never repeated each time.
Yeah.
It was like, I got in the guy's face and I kind of let him have it, and then I shoved his rods back in his lap and said, "You figure your way home. We're going now."
yeah,
He says, "You can't get out here." I said, "I have a GPS. I know.
Watch.
Yeah. Watch me."
right,
When I hate to say that was the only guy, everybody else has been bent over backwards
Yep.
to make sure that you're happy.
right. Unfortunately, I've heard more than a handful of times of an, of an experience like that, unfortunately. And that's unfortunate too, because like, let's say that somebody really gets into the sport and that's their first time. And now maybe they've been ruined after that. Maybe they'll never get a guide again. Or maybe they're like, you know what, I don't need to deal with this. And we all know it's not cheap to do that. So you're paying good money to go out to have a great time.
Well, it's a service industry.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I had a guy laugh at me, but that was justifiable. That was Hunter.
Oh, yeah. Hunter Doran. Yeah. He's a good guy.
Laugh, but this is silly.
Yeah.
He said, "Yeah, I know."
All right. So we'll get out of the statistics. So I kind of want to just talk a little bit about some of the new stuff that we're seeing out there. So has everybody heard of airflow lines? So airflow has been around for a little while, but what I would say is airflow has like completely done a 180. They're like, in my opinion, airflow is probably one of the top lines on the market right now. If you can't read, I'm going to read this to you. So airflow lines, 100% PVC free. All right, they're the only line company right now that's PVC free. We carry Scientific Angler. They still have the PVC stuff in there. Real lines, they carry PVC. We've always been PVC free, and with all the benefits of polyurethane, we've never changed. More environmentally responsible than PVC, greater resistance to UV degradation, sunscreen, DEET, fuel, and solvents than PVC. No leaching or harmful contaminants. Safely and completely recyclable. In our book, polyurethane wins hands down. So their whole big thing is that it's better for the environment, which it is. A lot of times we know, especially if we're out doing the oh my God, nighttime fishing. I'm losing my freaking mind.
Oh,
Hex hatch, thank you very much. We're out there doing this number. You're putting on your bug spray. If you didn't know that, if you're not using a PVC of your PVC line, it degrades and breaks down that line. Now, is it going to do it that night? No, I understand that, right? But over time, it's going to degrade that line. And if you're like most anglers now, fly lines are not cheap. You're spending over $100. You're spending like $100 on quality fly line. Yep, you can still buy fly line from me for $35. But if you're going to go out and angle more than 5 or 6 times in a season, you're going to be replacing that. So you're better off to get the quality. Plus, believe it or not, I was skeptic of it as well. You're shooting your line, your accuracy, all that stuff does really play into effect if you get a good quality line. Other thing that I thought was really interesting too about airflow is that the original low stretch core compared to competitor lines often tested out at 20 to 25% stretch. Airflow lines only stretch 6%. So again, your line is going to, the longevity of your line is much better. It's just a really, really good product. Now, what I would say to all that, of course, there's always a cost involved with being the best. Airflow lines retail for $100. Okay, so you're paying a little bit more for an airflow line. We brought airflow lines into the shop in the fall, and I probably, out of all the fly lines that I sell, at the end of the season there, when we brought these in, we were selling the majority were airflow lines. The response has been fantastic. People are super happy with the performance. And our main brand that we carry is Scientific Angler, and we sell a lot of Scientific Angler stuff. It's a great fly line. But airflow, I can see we've ordered a lot of preseason lines for airflow. We're really going to lean heavily on that brand, I think, in our shop because of all the different things that I have listed here for you. I did bring a sample of airflow line along just to pass around and take a look at it in my little goodie bag. So open it up, take a look at it if you want, but that's an actual airflow line for a weighted forward 3. And I'll just keep talking as we pass stuff around. We are going to have some Orvis line. I think I mentioned we are an Orvis dealer. So we are going to carry some very specific Orvis lines that came highly recommended from some people that have used them before and said they're just a great overall line, but we're not going to carry the whole Raymond Orvis stuff. We're just, our bread and butter is SA and now Airflow. All right, waterproof packs. So waterproof packs was all the rage of 2021, okay? The traditional regular canvas packs and stuff is still, obviously, it's still fine. We're not saying, you know, you got to toss it and come down and see us and get a waterproof pack. But the really cool thing is they've come a long way with technology, with basically air locking zipper systems. And I'll pass this around as well. Heavy duty air locking zipper systems where if this, you pull it down and it locks it. If this falls into the drink or the lake or whatever the case may be, other than the front zipper where you're going to put your, you know, whatever extra you want to haul in there, nothing's ever going to get wet. So where we're finding this becoming more of the rage for the industry is that folks are using this more than just going stream. They're using this to go boating. They're using this to go on a picnic. They're using this to go on a hiking trip. It's super universal, and we're getting people from not only the fly fishing industry but the backpacking industry now that are buying from our fly fishing brands to get these 100% waterproof packs. So, I mean, this is nothing new to some of you. I'm sure you obviously been in a fly shop or you've been to Cabela's, whatever, you're seeing these. But I just was pointing out from a retailer standpoint, this is kind of what I see personally the way forward, where people are going to get waterproof hip packs, waterproof backpacks, sling packs, you name it, just because of the universal use that we can get out of these packs. What I would say is that for a normal pack like this is going to be in the hundreds. This one runs for over 200. I got the price tag on this, so you're probably adding about another $100 to $150 to get this material, but people are willing to spend it because, again, it's so universal. So I'll just, as I'm keep getting caught, sorry on the microphone. And everybody's making them now. You know, like we carry Orvis, we carry Filson. Filson has a great waterproof pack systems. Of course, Sims. All the lines now are carrying waterproof stuff. All right, hydration packs. So everybody, I know this sounds crazy, right? But like we're used to having our wader belts, and we're having like a canteen on there or a water bottle holder on there, or a flask if you're into that. Maybe not. But anyways, so Sims came out with this their new flyweight system. So flyweight is like their new lightweight pack setups. Like they have backpacks, they have the hip packs, they have the flyweight waders, they have the integrated system on the front where you can kind of make your own system. They've got the flyweight boots. Anyways, they came up with this new hydration system. So water bladders built into the back and into the backpack. Obviously, the tube comes around like everybody heard of a Camelback system? So it's kind of the same thing. It's got the water system that comes around. So again, you can be fly fishing, super nice. Get the hose out, get some water from your hose, tuck it back in, and you're ready to go again. You're not, instead of screwing around, pulling stuff out, going into your backpack, super lightweight. Just another really cool thing. We're starting to see an uptick in this new hydration system as well.
So I got a question for you.
Yep.
I usually wear my net, the magnet back here. When I remember to bring it. But you put a backpack on, then what do you do with your net and stuff like that? It seems to me like you're getting pretty bulky. Yeah, you're getting bulky, but I would just get a net holder that hooks up to your. So by putting stuff on your backpack, you're able to start now taking some of the more stuff off your wader belt. Net holder on your wader belt, pull it out, from that area. I mean, I guess that would be one way you could do it. Or the other thing you could do too is a lot of these backpacks have the integrated webbing on the back side of it, where maybe you can hook your net on the back of that as well. The problem is that along the line they got military guys involved in this, and I say that from a very positive perspective. But the military is really big on this Molly. Have anybody ever heard of Molly? Like a Molly setup? Yeah. So the military is really big on Molly stuff, where you can take and put a magazine pouch here, and then if you don't like the magazine pouch in your chest, you can take it off and put the magazine pouch over here, or your first aid kit, you can move your first aid kit around. So that's what they're trying to do, is they're trying to, not only in fly fishing, but the outdoor world, they're trying to integrate this military Molly setup where you can configure your setup any way that you want. And that's kind of where that flyweight system's kind of coming into play.
Quite honestly, Sims has not had great success with the flyweight system yet. That's what the rep told me the other day, and we have seen that in sales as well. They put a little higher price mark and hope that they were going to get this big rush of anglers that were going to want this setup where they could configure their own thing. And what we're finding out in the industry is people are very traditional. People like the traditional way that they've always had their setup. We're seeing more sales in vests. Vests are starting to make a comeback. Where 2 years ago, vest was not a big seller for us. We're getting more people that are now wanting to buy vests, getting away from the sling packs, getting away from the hip packs, going back to the modular. I call them modular vests. So that's kind of the gear setup. I could go on and on. There's a couple more things, but I didn't want to. I mean, I'm already half an hour into this. So hopefully I'm keeping everybody's attention. I'm not bored. Oh, before I go into this, a couple other big sellers. So for like people now are crossing over from Sims into fly fishing into ice fishing stuff. So we actually now are starting to integrate in our fly shop ice fishing stuff. I always told people we're a hybrid fly shop. We're not 100% fly fishing.
2-foot fly rod?
Yeah, exactly. Hold the line, let it go. But Sims is not, they're not a dumb company, right? Just like Orvis. They know that anglers, they're trying to talk to all the anglers now. So these are kind of like that, they call them the Kipsock glove, but you can kind of see where that material is coming from. Kind of like that waterproof, scuba diving type glove, And I'll pass this around too. We sell more wool half gloves than anything else in the shop when it comes to handwear for the winter time. So the cool point about that, I'm sure you've seen these before, but I'll pass them around. The one thing that we're seeing now in the outdoor industry is that once what was cool back in the 30s and 40s is now coming back, and it's now coming back. So wool is like the big material right now that everybody's getting back into. Isn't that funny how we kind of went away from wool? We went to merino wool mixture. We went to all these different things. And now wool is making a huge comeback in the outdoor industry, which is really cool. It kind of plays really well into the next topic. So I figured to kind of end the presentation, I would give you an update of like kind of where we are as Fal Line, like where are we as far as the business goes. And if you haven't been down there before, I'm going to kind of give you some inside information as far as what our plan is for 22 and 23. The cool thing with owning this business is that we've really kind of started dialing in like who we are, like what's our identity as a store, right? And what I would say is if you look at these pictures, the far picture on the left is our new shop at 904 Main Street. The building was built in 1903. And what we did when we went into that store is this is what the inside looks like. And I know that you said you've been down there before. I'm sure I've seen you. I apologize if I don't remember that. I usually remember everybody that comes in the store, so I apologize. But the whole idea that what my idea of building this business from day one was we wanted to have a throwback company. We wanted to have a company, and if you look here, this is an original picture of Eddie Bauer when he first started his company, when he was actually a gear company and not just a clothing brand. But on the streets of in Washington, Eddie Bauer had a very similar vision that I think I do, along with LL Bean. If you think back to LL Bean, we talked about Abercrombie and Finch, Orvis Company. You know, I do a lot. I've done a lot of. I'm a throwback. I'm a Renaissance guy. I've done a lot of research on these companies, and the biggest thing that when I read and looked up the history of all these big companies that we now know today, the biggest thing that's happened besides a few of them is they got away from how they were built. A lot of these companies came out because these guys were outdoors people. They were people that went out. They actually used the products. Eddie Bauer, not to go too far into this, but Eddie Bauer was a big hunter in the out west. He was a big hunter, in Washington State, Oregon. And one time he was out hunting, and he got into a real bad rainstorm and a windstorm, and it got super cold, and he got dehydrated. And maybe you know the story. If you do, I apologize. But anyways, he was with a hunting partner, and he was to the point where he was almost going to die of dehydration. He actually sat down next to a tree, and he was freezing. And if it wasn't for his hunting partner to find him, he would have died. And he said, I have to come up with a way to build a better hunting jacket that I can outfit not only myself, but for the other hunters. And that's literally how he started his company. And he was one of the first ones to come up with the quilted jacket. And from there, that's how a lot of these companies came to fruition. And they did the hunting. They were anglers. They were into fishing. They had all these gear. And they built this reputation of quality products, 100% guaranteed, 100% guaranteed on their products. And as time went on, the companies evolved and they kind of went away from that. Now, obviously, we're not the size of any of these companies, but what I would say is the comparison to how they are and how we are is that we are a throwback company. Our identity is we wanted the old building. We wanted the building to look like it came from 1903. When you walk into our shop, we want it to be a step back in time. We want it to look like maybe a store that you would see in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. That's the whole idea behind what Fal Line Outfitters is actually the identity that we've become. Our idea is, and the next slide will go into the brands, but our idea is to give you all the high-end brands that you can't find everywhere in one location so that you want to come see us and get outfitted. As we all know, is Orvis cheap? Is Sims? Is Filson's cheap products? It's not. It's not going to be the cheapest stuff. But what I would tell you is all these products have great warranties. And we personally at Fal Line, if you have a products, you bring it back to us and we will send them into these companies and take care of it for you. We're not going to tell you, well, you know, Kirk, you bought that Sims waiter from us. You need to get a hold of Sims and have them take care of it. Give me your waiters. I'll pay for the postage. I'm going to send them back to Sims and make sure that you get the waiter from me after it's fixed. We're bringing old school customer service back to the way it should be and the way it used to be. And so that's, not to go on my spiel, but bottom line, I'm trying to say is like, we want to be a store that your grandparents and your great grandparents used to shop at. And that's kind of like where our identity is starting to go. So shop growth, where were we 2 years ago when I presented this? So 2 years ago, I was looking at it, and one of my goals for the next year for 2020 was I wanted to add 2 part-time employees. That was my goal for 2020. We're at 9 part-time employees right now. I just hired my first full-time employee, looking to hire my second full-time employee in this fall. We have currently we have 3 guides. We just added another guide to the shop for 2022. We went from 660 square feet at our old location. We're up to 3,000 square feet with an additional 3,000 square feet upstairs that we're going to try to open up in 2023. I think I have that right there. And really cool, if you haven't been in there before, I know you have, we have a coffee shop inside. So we're planning to open that coffee shop before April 1st of 2022. So the whole idea is that you can come down there and you can shop for fly fishing stuff. You can tell fly fishing stories, which we love. And then you can get a cup of coffee from a full service coffee shop. Sounds crazy why we would do that, but we're trying to create an experience too. It's not about just coming down to get gear. It's coming down to get the whole experience of being an outdoor shop, like I said, like it used to be. We do roast our own coffee, so we do have Fal Line Coffee Company. Our first one is Wisconsin Gold. It's based off of brown trout. I should have brought a bag of it just to show you what it looks like. Our second one is a really cool throwback to one of the really cool displays that we have in our shop. I'm not going to ruin what it is, but it's a throwback. You're going to see this. I like to feel like if you see the design of the bag, it's really cool. It's a really cool throwback to how things used to be back in the day. It goes right along with our brand. I'm kind of going really fast here, but I'm very passionate, as you can tell, about what we got going on. So we have a really cool thing about our building is that we have a downstairs classroom there, and we have an exterior exit that you can exit out of it. So right now, tonight, we have a class going on. It's Fly Fishing 101. It's a 6-week course that we offer. It's $50 for go through it, and we talk about the basics for 6 weeks. We kind of base that class off of the Orvis Fly Fishing 101, but we kind of curtail it to Central Wisconsin. So the idea of that class, I'm not rambling too long, am I? All right. Is if you've never fly fished or you've done a little bit of fly fishing, come down to the class. We're going to teach you like what flies are prevalent in Central Wisconsin, how to read the water in a stream. What's the difference between, because a lot of people don't know what weights are in fly fishing. So we explain all that. And then it culminates in the 6 weeks. So next week, we're going to Central Water Brewing in Amherst, and we are going to actually go in their barrel room, and we're going to do false casting in the barrel room. So we're giving them the full experience for $50 in our classroom. We also have beginning of the fly tying. That was yesterday. That's a 6-week course for $50. And again, we've had just a great response of people wanting to get into it, that we're actually holding another session of each one of those classes starting in February for 6 weeks. And then now we're kind of shifting trails a little bit here where we're doing a winter camping class this Saturday. So now we're doing something that's completely different than fly fishing. We're bringing people from the outdoors to do a winter camping class. Who in the hell would want to do a winter camping class? Not this guy who's in the Army for 22 years, but there's people that want to do it. Maybe not on Monday when it was negative 13 and 26 below windshield, but we got that winter camping class going on. And actually, this is supposed to say ice fishing. So we're actually going to have a class where a guy who's on the professional ice fishing circuit is going to come in, who's from Stevens Point, and he's going to do a 2-hour class on getting into ice fishing and all the stuff that you need with ice fishing. So we're kind of diversifying some of these things. The whole idea is to get the community involved in outdoor stuff. That's really the idea. We don't charge a lot for these classes. We have a really cool space in the basement, and it just works out really, really well with the shop. Any questions on any of that stuff?
What do you envision in the upstairs?
So for 2023, what's happening right now is I'm grabbing all these high-end brands. And so these are some of the brands, this will kind of answer some of those questions, but these are some of the brands that we brought in from 21 and what we're bringing in for 22. So we did add Orvis in 2021. Douglas rods, we're going to be bringing Douglas to the shop. We'll have, what's that? Yeah, that's the one I couldn't think of, Douglas rods. So Douglas rods, we're partnering up with them. We're going to have them in the shop. And then we've never done this before, but we're actually going to have a rental system now for fly fishing. So you can come in and get a really nice quality pair of waders and boots through Sims. And our rental rods are going to be the mid-level Douglas rods that you're going to be able to rent now through the shop. Fish Pond's new, Airflow, we talked about that. Filson. So I know Kirk and I have had very many discussions about Filson. Are you guys familiar with that brand? Filson is starting now to make more things in the United States. Imagine that when you can't get it from over in Southeast Asia, right? I think a lot of companies are going to start making it back in the United States. But Filson is starting to make more of their products back in the United States. And honestly, the products that they don't make in the United States, I'm kind of staying away from because we're finding out it's not that great, like a lot of the brands. But they do the fly fishing, and we're trying to get a little more into upland hunting as well in our shop. So in September, you'll see an influx. In September and October, you'll see a little more of an influx in our shop with upland hunting stuff. Orvis and Filson kind of help out with that. And then we do have Danner footwear where we're bringing in upland hunting boots and kind of like their basic $150 hunting boot with like 800 grams of insulation in it. So you can kind of see we're crossing over a little bit, not just fly fishing. Pendleton's got great wool stuff. Wool's really big right now, so we're bringing Pendleton stuff in. Big Agnes for camping, Marmot for camping, and Outdoor Research for clothing, and then MSR. So I don't know if you heard of some of those brands. But with the expansion part of it, going upstairs, is that we figure we have one more year in our current 3,000 square foot space to still continue to have growth in our business. The end of 2022, if we continue on our trend, we'll be capped. We won't have any more room to grow our business because we won't have any more room to bring any more products in for the demand that we're seeing, at least in it. So by opening the upstairs, we're able to take these products, grow some of these brands, and maybe offer more things in the outdoor industry. So that's kind of the whole idea behind the growth. We kind of went from being like, we're a fly shop. That's all we are, is a fly shop. Now as we continue to grow and find our identity, we are kind of now being more known, and we want to be more known as we are an outfitter specializing in fly fishing. Because there's a big industry for people that want to do more than just fly fishing. People will come in the shop, and we put all our fly fishing in the front of the shop. If you've been in there, you'll see that. People will walk in there and go, "Oh, you're a fishing store." No. We're not just first off, we're a fly shop. Get it right. No. Fishing store. We're more than that. And I think today, I think if you asked a lot of fly shops, some fly shops, like at the Driftless Angler, they shut down for some days in the wintertime. It's just not, at least in Wisconsin, it's not sustainable to be a fly shop 365. You got to diversify. You've got to, it helps obviously in Wisconsin. We have an early season here, but we're trying to be busy 365. We're not trying to be busy from May through December, so that's kind of why the diversification a little bit too. I don't know if there's any.
Well, you sell other things like Danner.
Yeah, we sell Danner footwear.
Yeah.
We sell Thorogood work boots. So Thorogood out of Merrill, we sell their work boots. We do really well with Thorogood work boots. Yeah, I mean we have all sorts of brands that we're now carrying, but the whole idea is that we're carrying brands that Shepherd and Schaller, if everybody knows Shepherd and Schaller here in Wausau, they're more of a ski shop. They carry some similar brands as well. Great business, great business. But I want to carry things that they don't carry, so that people have to come and see us, or want to come. I shouldn't say have to, but they want to come and see us instead of having to drive all the way to Appleton to Shields, which granted Shields is a mega outlet store or mega store, or REI. We want people to come down and see us in Stevens Point, and have these brands that you can't find everywhere. But don't make no mistake when I say these things. We specialize in fly fishing. We know our fly fishing stuff. Cole, who's my full-time employee, he ties flies for us. He knows everything you want to know about tying flies and what materials you're going to need to tie a certain bug. And like I think you had mentioned, people come to us because they want to know specifics on these things. They're not coming to us because they want to say, hey, I want to tie a pink squirrel. What do I need? Oh, I don't know. Hey, Jimmy, you know how to tie a pink squirrel? I think so. No. We're going to tell you how to tie a pink squirrel. I mean, that's the idea behind this. So I hope I didn't make this into a store pitch, because I really didn't want to do that. But I wanted to kind of let you know, like, this is who we are. This is kind of how we've molded and how we've changed. And this is kind of the way forward for us, on top of some of the statistics for fly fishing. I will tell you that your guys' chapter has been a huge supporter of our business from day one. I really appreciate that. And if there's anything ever in the future I was really looking forward to doing the fly film, being a big sponsor of that. I completely understand the reasonings behind that. Hopefully we can do that next year if things get better. But if there's anything that we can ever do, by all means, please let us know. We want to be your fly shop, right? With that being said, there's great fly shops throughout the state that I'm sure that you guys patronize as well, which is fantastic. We just want to find our place, and I think we're finding our place in central Wisconsin. So
You have 3 guides now, so do they have different specialties, or they just kind of?
So Dan Boggs, he's definitely Dan. So Dan Boggs, he's done a presentation, I think, for this.
Yep.
He grew up in the Driftless area, so and again, I don't want to speak on Dan's behalf, but he knows trout really well as well, and he would always be willing to take somebody out on trout. But I think it's safe to say that he really loves and specializes more on the muskie and the smallmouth fishing. He's got a drift boat. He's sponsored by Point Brewery, so if you see a drift boat that says Point Brewery on the side, that's Dan. Maybe you probably see him going up and down on 3951. And then Jerry Kane, he was a guide for Driftless Angler for many years, and then he became part of the team. He's kind of like the lead guide for the trout side, because he lives in Wisconsin Rapids. So that was really the only reason why when I opened the shop, he approached me, and it just made really good sense. And then we just brought on Adam Gruel, who's big into trout, but he's also a smallmouth guy. And Adam's big thing is he wants to expand guiding up into some of the freestones up north, and he knows a lot of the waters in the Northwoods and stuff. So literally, if you call the shop now, we will guide pretty much anywhere. Driftless now, we're going to do fringe guiding in the Driftless area. We're going to do some Northwoods guiding, and then of course our bread and butter is. Well, we're not going to go anywhere over by Tim over to Tight Lines. That's kind of his area up there in the Menominee area and stuff. But I mean, you name it. We're not what I would say is that, obviously, like, we know that you have the fly shop up in Hayward, right? Yeah, we're not going to impede in some of those territories, of course. We're talking more like the Minocqua area, the Prairie. We'll do some guiding on the Prairie, of course. That's not that far from here. But we're not going to impede in some of these other guys' areas because that's just good common courtesy stuff. But there's a lot of great fisheries in the Northwoods that aren't touched. That these guys, like Adams, fish a lot of these different areas. So I don't know. That's not really giving you specific streams, but we're just kind of expanding the horizon a little bit. And there's only 3 guys, so it's not like we're gonna be able to cover tons of territory. But so I don't know. Is there any? I think that's it.
I have one other question on the rods. You picked Douglas rod, but in the last, it seems like every year for the last 6 years or 5 years or whatever, there's been a bunch of people that are going out and starting their own rod.
Sure.
What's precipitated?
Well, I think my opinion is I think it's a little bit of like kind of what I said earlier, where you have people that are super passionate in the sport, and then we fall under some difficult times where what else are you going to do when you're, I mean, I'm not going to say like these guys are just sitting at home twiddling their thumbs, but they're big into fly fishing. They have a talent. These guys have built rods before. And then all of a sudden now we've got more people in the sport. So it's like, hey, Jimmy, I hear you. Hey, I know that you build your own rods. You know, would you be interested in selling them? Well, I guess, you know, here we go. So now I'm not saying that's how they all started. I think this is how some of this has started, is that guy now fishes that particular rod. It's a pretty nice rod. The word spreads. One thing leads to another. And because we have more people in the sport, I think it's giving some of these smaller rod companies an opportunity now to kind of strike up their own companies and kind of start doing their thing on their own. What I would tell you is that people are really still big in name brand recognition. People will come into the store and they'll instantly gravitate towards Orvis stuff because they've heard that brand numerous times. And it goes without saying. I mean, the brand, if you're an Orvis guy, you love Orvis, right? But people will gravitate because they've heard that brand before. We carry a smaller company out of Minnesota called Limit Creek. I don't know if anybody's heard of Limit Creek. They're kind of growing a little bit. Phenomenal rods. We're starting to sell more of those rods. But if I said, well, you know, we have this Orvis rod for the relatively same price, or we have a Limit Creek rod, a lot of times people are going to gravitate towards the name brand stuff. Now, if you've been angling for a while and you know what you like and you know what you fish, you're the perfect person that's going to give a rod builder an opportunity, especially if it's the right price. You know, that's kind of where they're trying to focus. These particular rod builders are trying to focus on anglers that have been doing this for a while, and that's kind of at least what I see from my perspective. I don't know if anybody sees it differently. I mean, or like I said, another shop could tell you something different than I'm telling you too. But that's where I think we're seeing an influx of custom rod builders that are starting to come up into the industry a little bit. I don't know if that's the best answer,
No,
but
it makes sense. I mean, I know I own too many fly rods, but I always like looking at them.
right.
Is there such a thing?
Well, it's like shotguns for me. The only gauge of shotgun I don't have is a 16 gauge, and I probably don't have a long one, I think.
Yeah.
16.
But between 40 and collecting.
Right, yeah. The problem with owning the number of fly rods I have is that, like, if I say, well, I'm gonna go fly fishing, I take 3 rods just for me, and then I get there and I debate which one I'm gonna use.
Just before I close it out, what I would say, when I came here and talked 2 years ago, our fly here. So as you can see, we've really expanded all the way down to, like, if you can, it's probably hard to see. These are all the hooks now that we sell. So I mean, we sell pretty much a hook for any type of species of fish that you would imaginable. Maybe not a tarpon, unless you want to use them. We probably have a musky hook that you could use for that. But my point behind it is that you can see, this just tells you how many people in this area like to tie flies. You know, we're trying to do smart ordering as a store. So if it wasn't a really big need or people really weren't into it, we wouldn't have such an expansive fly tying section. But it's just it's continually growing because people are really, really into tying their own flies. And what I would tell you too is most of our flies that you get from the major fly companies, so Montana Fly Company, these are a couple that I rep, Umpqua, the list goes on. There's a lot of different companies. Most of these flies, and you probably know this, are made over in Southeast Asia. Most of these fly companies, even though they have their name on it, they're made in the same factory. And what happens is they buy factory time. And again, if you know this, I apologize, I'm regurgitating this stuff, but you may have a factory in Southeast Asia. Orvis is now talking to that manufacturing company saying, hey, we want X amount of flies made. And they'll say, all right, well, we can fit you in from, you know, the month of March, we're going to tie Orvis flies. And then you got Montana Fly Company calling the same factory saying, we want flies tied. Or, flies tied. Oh, okay, we can fit you in May. It's the same. They're coming out of the same factories. It's the same stuff. It's just getting put on, different names getting put on it. With that being said, because they are made in Southeast Asia, fly prices are going up like everything, right? Inflation. So we're seeing an influx of people going, hey, wait a minute here. I can go and tie a dozen of these flies for a fraction of what I can go out and buy them, right? And I think that's another reason why we're seeing an influx of people getting into the thing of tying their own flies. I don't tie flies. Please don't crucify me for saying that as a fly shop owner. I just don't have time to do it. So I'm still the guy who's buying flies. and I want you to buy flies from me. But that's where we're starting to see, we're starting to see more people tie up to buying their own flies because of it. Just financially, it just makes good sense.
Many flies in Peru. I mean, I bought so much stuff.
Right.
I don't know
Right.
if I've saved anything, but you do get what you get.
Right.
The one good thing about it, I know, even though I don't tie very often, is that you want to create your own thing, or if there's a fly that's used, in a specific section of a river that you fish that, some people know about, but you're not somewhere. That's the great thing about it. You can tie something that's specific to that.
Yeah.
Where my dad was born and raised in Cromberg, Montana, in his house was where they invented the girdle bug.
Really.
A friend of his dad's, my grandfather, a friend of my grandfather's came over and they said, we gotta have a topwater fly that acts like these bugs, and stuff like that. And the guy said, well, what are you gonna use for legs? And the guy said, wait a minute, I got something in my car. And this wife had left an old girdle in the car from where they went on a trip for some reason. It was in his trunk of his car, so he went out and got it. That's where
That's what the story was.
That's where the name girdle bug
Okay,
came from.
that's cool.
So that, and my dad, sat there and watched this happen. I used to tie a bunch of those, and now they're putting bead heads on them and all sorts of crazy things, and they put different types of legs on them. That fly, you could only get it, when I was a kid, you could only get it in like 2 spots in the state.
Right.
And it was a very popular fly. In that little town, anybody who fished tied them by the hundreds every year.
Sure. Sure.
And they sold them to a couple shops.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, the majority of the people that come into the shop, the first thing they'll say is, "Where's your locally tied stuff?" People would rather buy a locally tied fly than they would buy a manufactured fly, which is great. So we do have some local tires. The other thing I would say is like from the musky fly, because musky fly fishing is really taken off as well. The companies out west, they don't know what a musky fly is. So a lot of the flies that we carry in our shop, musky wise, they're all locally tied flies. They're beautiful. But yeah, so I mean the locally tied ones are always the favorites over the manufactured flies type of thing. So
the musky flies, when we had Dan on, that was one of our first Zoom meetings. He was sitting at his bench tying while he was talking.
Yeah.
That was, it was quite interesting to watch that. So
yeah, that was last year when I was doing a presentation. He was on there, and phenomenal. But I guess the last thing I would say before, as I appreciate your guys' time listening to me jibber jabber. But the second thing I would say to take away is that from the fly fishing industry and the outdoor industry, again, what was once old is now new again. Wool is making a huge comeback. Wool jackets. The only thing that's not making a huge comeback is felt bottom wading boots. They're not making a comeback. Everything is now rubber and spikes in the whole 9 yards. And a lot of the reason for that, if you didn't know, was because you're getting stuff stuck in your boot, and they're saying you're transferring it from one system to the next. But it's a cool time, I think, to be involved in the industry, just because it's really neat to see items and products that my dad used to use when he hunted and bird hunted and deer hunted and fished that are now showing back up in these stores again. It's just really nostalgic and really cool. So hopefully you didn't throw any of your stuff out when you guys were younger. You didn't throw any of that stuff away, because it's going to be very coveted here. But yeah, so that's really, I mean, other than some of the items that I explained that are kind of on the scene, really there's not a ton of change. We are seeing a bit of influx of people wanting to go back to casting bamboo again. So that's kind of seems to be, again, it's nostalgic, right? I mean, people used to throw bamboo, and then we kind of went away from that with graphite and whatever else, and now people are now wanting to bring bamboo stuff back in. We have more people that bring heirloom stuff into our shop, wanting to get new line for it, and I'll say, we'll gladly put line on this, but just remember, like anything, bamboo gets old over time. It gets brittle depending on how it was stored. And if this was your grandfather's rod and you want to keep it nice, maybe you don't want to fish it, but whatever, irregardless. But we're seeing more of that too as well. And again, we're a fly shop, so I get it. People are going to bring their fly fishing stuff into us, but it's pretty much.
I'm amazed at how many people want, with fly rods, the ease of casting with the new technology of fly rods compared to the old stuff. I have my dad's old fiberglass rod. It's a beautiful rod, but it's like casting. You're like ready to go home and take a nap.
Yeah, I mean, I have so I don't know if anybody's heard of it, and if you've been to shop, I cast a moonshine rod. So moonshine's kind of relatively new on the scene, but they're really starting to make some ground. I've got a 5-weight 9, and I really liked it. And then Jerry and I went down to the driftless. Jerry, the guy who went down to the driftless on the last day of trout, and he's like, well, you carry overs now, and you fished a Helios, and I'm like, I can't afford a Helios. I own a fly shop. I can't. He's like, I'm gonna buy a Helios. So he bought it, and we went out and he let me fish it. And I'm telling you, I couldn't believe where I was putting these flies. It was unreal, the accuracy of this thing. And I was like, okay, I guess to an extent it did. You know, my point is that you do kind of get what you pay for. A lot of that goes to is like, how good are you as an angler as well? I will tell you that I don't get out half as much as I wish I could because I'm so involved in doing stuff in the shop. So I was pretty rusty, and about halfway through the day, I was pulling fish left. And granted, you're in the driftless, right? But my point is that it was so smooth and it was so accurate. It made the experience of being out there that day. I walked out there with the biggest smile on my face. I can't wait to get back there. So I do believe you get what you pay for to an extent. And that's not me being a salesman, that's just my experience. So,
No doubt.
Yeah.
What do you see anything else that's unusual coming up in technology, or like you said, things are kind of maybe going full circle of where they were?
Yeah, I mean, good sized influx of early season fish. Had a lot of people. The first, we had a lot of people at the end of December after Christmas that were coming in loading up on flies, leader, buying some of the gloves and stuff to go out. Maybe that's just the progression of our store where we're seeing more anglers finding us, so they're coming in and buying their gear. But we didn't see the same influx for people in December of 20 or early season 21. We didn't see this big of influx of people that were going out early season fishing. Much more this year. Now, granted, we didn't see too many people that were coming in for stuff on Monday. But like today, 32 degrees, right? We had quite a few people that came in the shop today that were getting line cleaner and at least thinking about getting their stuff out to go out. And I think the forecast looks pretty favorable for the most part. So I think we're going to see a pretty big influx of people in the next few days that are going to get out and fish. And then that brings up another thing too. And I don't know what time you guys usually cut when you're done for the night.
Keep going.
We had so we put out stuff on our social media that, hey, we're doing early season half-day guided trips right now, and we've had a couple people kind of pipe in and say, that's not good for the fish and this and that, and I agree with that. And I kind of had to have a conversation and said, one thing that we do as outdoorsmen and ladies and anglers is we always, I think, probably try to do a really good job of taking care of, the deer population or the trout population, and we're never going to do anything that's going to harm that, but like, you just got to be smart about it. If you're going to go out early season fishing, you're going to get onto a trout. Don't get out of the water real long, because literally, the trout will get frostbite. I mean, they really will. They can get frostbite under the wheels and everything in the whole 9 yards. It'd also be responsible fishing when it's 5 degrees out too. Go out there when it's like it was today, 32 degrees. Get the fish out of the water, snap your pole rope, or get the fish, unhook the fish and get them out into the stream. I think a lot of it has to do with like what your personal opinion is as far as how that goes. I would tell you that I think it's okay to do it as long as you're responsible about it. Like again, you're not out there fly fishing when it's extremely cold. And a lot of people don't want to go out there and freeze their butt off anyway, so there's not a ton of people that do it. But we're seeing more of it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And maybe again, that's because more people are getting into the sport. So that's why we're seeing an influx of people that are going through the season because they're just can't wait to get out. I don't know.
Cool.
I don't have any other questions unless somebody else.
Appreciate listening to me now. Thanks for listening to your ramble.
As always, we appreciate you coming here.
You see any, like the trend going for the switch rods? For your bigger stuff?
Yeah, a little bit. You know, the other thing that's really big right now too is nip rods, like people getting, you know, check nitpicking and stuff. You had a lot of people come in and ask if we sell 10 car rods, which we don't, I probably should.
No, those are just teepos, you know.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's a key for. I said, what's? I don't get it either, but the switch industry always intrigues me to that. I spade cast below the writing dam for small.
Sure.
You could bomb them out there.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So it's fun. So
Absolutely, yeah, definitely an increase in that. The other thing too with that, this caught me off surprise. I guess I shouldn't have been, but we have a ton of anglers in the central part of the state that are big steelhead fishing. That are going out to the coast. I mean, it makes sense, right? Because you know, being centrally located, it's not that far. Just like I think going to the Dripless area for us is, we're pretty lucky as well. I mean, it's not terribly far to go to the Dripless for the day. And I guess I didn't see that coming. You know, people want egg stack patterns and some of the bigger stuff, and we definitely are adjusting to that. But I didn't see that coming. I didn't see that we would have that many folks.
well, you got
The shop went down in Clover.
Yeah.
We should both do.
Right.
You gotta compete with tight lines over that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
You got the lake right there.
Right. Yeah.
But
Every year I buy the trout stamp for that and I never use it. I've never done it.
Best lightning on a stick.
it's bad. You hook into a steelhead, your heart is instantly up in your throat. Watching that thing jump around like the does. Oh my God.
Tearing your shit up.
You know,
I always find it fun to listen to the stories of guys that go out there, and we have some shop employees that are really big on it. And I'll say to them like, well, how many guys are conventional fishing compared to you guys fly? They're like, oh, it's just me and the other guy were fly fishing. And I don't know if you guys have experienced this, if you do this or not, but he said literally guys will stop conventional fishing and they'll just go, as we sit there and cast these fly rods, because I don't think a lot of people see it. You know, I can be wrong on that, but they just, people are still in awe of the art of fly fishing, which to me is
fishing for seagulls, what the hell?
Exactly. But, yeah. So anyway, yeah.
That's what's good about fly fishing is if you don't catch fish, you had a good day casting.
Yeah.
It's still satisfying.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Good. Once again,